Princess Lysera stood on the balcony of the Solaris Palace, her golden crown gleaming under the twin suns. The air shimmered with heat, but she felt a chill in her heart. Today was unusual. The palace had received news of a human arriving at their gates alone, without the usual escorts or weapons. That in itself was strange. Humans were thought weak, fragile, and insignificant by most Solaris people. They were outsiders, small creatures who had barely touched the stars. And yet, this human dared to come here, to the heart of the Solaris Empire. Lysera adjusted her crown slightly. It was heavy, but it was supposed to make her feel strong. That was what everyone had told her since she was a child. A crown symbolized power, authority, respect. She had trained all her life to be the perfect princess, to command, to be feared, and to be admired. And now, standing tall, she felt that maybe the crown was not enough. The human reached the gates of the palace with calm, measured steps. There was no hesitation, no sign of fear, even as the sentries, tall and armored, raised their weapons. Energy spears glowed in the sunlight, their tips sharper than anything Lysera had touched in her life. She expected the human to stumble, to falter, to show that he was indeed the weak creature everyone said humans were. But he did not. The courtiers gathered behind her balcony, whispering nervously. Many had scoffed when they heard a human would enter the palace. Some thought it a joke, a trick, or even a punishment for their princess. Lysera could feel their eyes on her, their judgment. She lifted her chin, trying to show strength. But inside, her stomach twisted with a mix of curiosity and unease. The human stopped in the center of the courtyard. He was tall, solid, with broad shoulders that seemed ordinary to a Solaris eye. Yet there was a presence about him that could not be ignored. He did not carry weapons that shone like the palace guards, and yet he seemed unshakable, calm, grounded in a way that made even the bravest Solaris soldier glance at him twice. He bowed not in fear, but in respect. Lysera felt a flicker of irritation. How dare he? The proper protocol was clear. All outsiders should kneel low, submit, show obedience. And yet, he had bent only slightly, as if greeting an equal. The boldness made her heart beat faster, and not just from anger. Something unfamiliar stirred within her, a mix of curiosity, challenge, and admiration. Lysera raised her voice, loud and commanding, so the human and everyone in the courtyard could hear. You enter the palace of the Solaris Empire. Speak. Your purpose, human, or be removed immediately. The human lifted his head. His eyes were steady, calm, and direct. I have come to offer aid, princess, he said. His voice was firm, but not loud, carrying confidence without arrogance. My people wish to help, if you will allow it. A murmur ran through the courtiers. Aid from humans? Impossible. They had never been allies. They had been considered weak, expendable, or worse, annoyances to the greater galactic powers. Many whispered to each other, shaking their heads. Lysera felt a strange pull in her chest. Why should I trust you? She demanded. I did not ask for your trust, he replied simply. I only asked for a chance to show my worth. The silence in the courtyard was heavy. Even the wind seemed to pause. The suns above cast long shadows. And Lysera's crown reflected the light in blinding streaks, almost as if daring him to step closer. She wanted to see him fail. She wanted to watch him stumble and confirm everything she had been taught about humans. But deep down, a small, rebellious part of her wanted to see if he could rise to the challenge. She straightened her shoulders, her mind racing. Could a human, someone so small, so underestimated, truly stand in the heart of the Solaris Empire and not falter? For the first time, her crown, her title, her pride, all the symbols of power she had carried her whole life, felt heavy and empty compared to the presence of this human standing before her. Lysera's eyes narrowed, a spark of both anger and intrigue lighting them. Very well, she whispered under her breath. Let us see what you are made of, human. Show me your worth. And with that, the gates of the palace opened wider, signaling the beginning of a trial that no one, including Lysera herself, would ever forget. The human stepped into the courtyard with steady steps, his gaze never leaving Princess Lysera. Around him, the air seemed charged. The palace guards tensed, gripping their glowing spears, ready to strike at any misstep. Lysera's eyes narrowed. Every fiber of her being told her this human could not possibly survive the trials that awaited him. He was alone, unarmed in the ways of her people, and utterly inexperienced in Solaris customs. Yet something in his calm, unwavering stance unsettled her. Human, she called from the balcony, her voice carrying over the courtyard. Your first trial begins now. You will navigate the Hall of Blades. Fail, and you leave this palace in shame. Succeed, and you may yet prove your worth. The guards opened the massive doors to the Hall of Blades. Inside, a labyrinth of moving energy walls awaited. Each wall shimmered with deadly light, strong enough to cut through the armor of even the most seasoned Solaris warrior. The labyrinth was designed to test speed, reflexes, and intelligence. Many had tried before, and many had failed, leaving only shattered hopes and bruised egos in their wake. The human paused at the entrance for only a moment. He studied the patterns of the shifting walls, his eyes narrowing slightly, and then he stepped forward. The crowd gasped. Most expected him to stumble on the very first step. They expected him to falter, to be torn apart by the moving blades. Yet he moved carefully, deliberately, with a grace that seemed almost unnatural for someone of his size. Lysera leaned closer, curiosity sharpening her features. She had watched countless warriors attempt this trial, each confident in their skill, and each had failed spectacularly. But this human, he seemed different. Not faster than the trained warriors, not stronger, not more powerful, just smarter, calmer, more aware of his surroundings than anyone she had ever seen. Step by step, he navigated the labyrinth. A wall swung dangerously close, and he paused, calculating the timing, then moved with precision, sliding through a narrow opening just as the blade passed by. Another wall closed in quickly, and he ducked. Instinctively, his hands barely brushing the light as it zipped past. The crowd held its breath. Every Solaris in the courtyard felt a mix of awe and disbelief. Lysera's heart pounded. She wanted to look away, to hide the fact that she was afraid of what she might feel if he succeeded, yet she could not. Something about the human's courage, his intelligence, and his calm determination resonated deep within her. It was not just that he was surviving. He was thriving where others would have fallen. Minutes felt like hours as he moved through the twisting corridors of the Hall of Blades. Sparks of light flashed as walls collided, but the human never faltered. Every step, every turn was precise, almost like he could see the patterns of danger before they appeared. Finally he emerged from the labyrinth, sweat on his brow, dust on his clothes, but completely unharmed. The crowd erupted in stunned applause. Courtiers whispered, soldiers stared, and even the palace guards lowered their spears slightly, unable to hide their astonishment. Lysera's lips parted. She had expected him to fail, to crumble, to prove what she had been taught, that humans were weak. Yet he stood there, proud and unbroken, his gaze now resting calmly on her. For the first time in her life, the princess felt a flicker of doubt about everything she had believed. "This is impossible," one of her advisors whispered. "No human has ever survived the Hall of Blades." Lysera's eyes narrowed, not with anger, but with a new emotion, a strange mix of curiosity and respect. "You have survived, human," she said, her voice firm but quieter now. "But this is only the beginning. If you think this proves your worth, the trials ahead will be far more difficult." The human nodded, his chest rising and falling steadily. "I understand, princess. I am ready for whatever comes next." Lysera stared at him, and in that moment, a tiny seed of admiration began to grow. She could feel it, deep in her chest. A quiet acknowledgement that perhaps strength was not just measured by lineage or crowns, but by courage, intelligence, and an unshakable heart. And with that, the gates to the second trial slowly opened, promising even greater challenges and even greater revelations. For both the human and the princess, the courtyard fell silent as the human stepped forward, leaving behind the Hall of Blades. His clothes were dusty, his hands slightly scratched, but his eyes were calm, steady, and alert. Princess Lysera watched him from the balcony, her golden crown gleaming in the twin suns' light. She had expected him to falter in the first trial, but he had not. And now, a more difficult challenge awaited. "This," she announced, her voice echoing across the courtyard, "is the trial of the mind. It is not enough to be strong and agile. You must also prove that you can think, adapt, and face your deepest fears." The human nodded. "I understand, princess. I am ready." The gates to the trial opened, revealing a long, dark corridor. The walls shimmered strangely, as if alive. The air smelled faintly of smoke and damp stone. Beyond the corridor, illusions. Awaited visions meant to confuse, frighten, and break the spirit of anyone who entered. Many Solaris warriors had failed here, not because of lack of skill, but because the illusions preyed on doubt, fear, and weakness of heart. The human stepped inside. The first illusion appeared immediately. A massive shadow loomed before him, eyes glowing with anger. It whispered in a voice that seemed to crawl into his mind, telling him that he would fail, that he was weak, that he had no right to stand in the palace of the Solaris Empire. Most people would have panicked, but he did not. He inhaled slowly, focusing on his heartbeat, grounding himself in the present. "I am here," he whispered under his breath. "I face what comes. I do not fear shadows." The illusion shifted, taking the form of lost family members, accusing him, blaming him for failures he had never made. He stood firm, nodding slightly, accepting the visions but refusing to be trapped by them. Each step forward was a battle of willpower. The walls seemed to close in, the shadows whispered louder, but he pressed on, steady, unwavering, calm. From her balcony, Lysera leaned forward, her heart pounding in a way she could not explain. She had never seen anyone move through the trial of the mind with such control. Every human she had observed before would have broken in terror. And yet this one moved forward, step by step, refusing to yield to fear. The illusions tried everything, visions of failure, loss, and betrayal. The human faced each one with quiet determination. He spoke aloud at times, words of courage and affirmation, acknowledging the fear but refusing to let it dominate him. "This is only a test," he murmured. "I am stronger than my fear." Hours seemed to pass in mere moments as he walked deeper into the trial. The shadows and illusions faded gradually, unable to touch the strength in his heart. Finally, he emerged from the corridor, his eyes clear, his posture strong. The sun hit him as he stepped into the courtyard again, and the crowd gasped. Lysera's chest tightened. She had trained all her life in strategy, courage, and discipline, yet she felt a mixture of awe and disbelief. This human, small and underestimated, had faced what many of her strongest warriors could not. He had faced fear, confusion, and mind games, and he had emerged whole. The human bowed slightly to her. "I have done what I could, Princess," he said quietly. "I do not ask for your praise, only that you see my effort." Lysera found herself nodding, almost without thinking. "Your courage is extraordinary," she admitted, her voice low, almost reluctant. "I have underestimated you." The courtiers whispered among themselves, unable to hide their amazement. The princess, with all her power, her crown, and her authority, had just recognized that something more valuable than any title or armor could exist in this human. She stepped back to the balcony railing, her eyes fixed on him. The crown on her head felt suddenly lighter, as if its weight had been nothing compared to what she had witnessed. For the first time, she understood that strength was not always in the body, nor in the title, nor in the gold one wore. It could live quietly, firmly, in the heart. "And now," she said, her voice firm again, "you will face the final trial. It will test not only your mind, but your body, your spirit, and your courage together. Prepare yourself, human, for this will be the true measure of your worth." The human nodded, and a faint smile appeared on his face. "I am ready, Princess. Whatever comes, I will face it." Lysera watched him, a strange respect growing in her chest. The human's courage and heart had already begun to change something in her, a belief that perhaps even a human could stand as an equal among the strongest in the galaxy. The courtyard was quiet, almost too quiet. Princess Lysera stood on her balcony, her golden crown catching the twin sun's light, reflecting it in sharp, dazzling streaks. The final trial was about to begin. It was not just a test of intelligence or courage, it was a test of strength, skill, and heart. It was the trial that no human had ever passed, the duel against the strongest warrior of the Solaris Empire. The champion stepped forward, tall, armored, and confident. He wielded a spear that glowed with pure energy, moving as if alive in his hands. The crowd murmured in anticipation. Many whispered that this human would fall immediately, crushed by the might of a trained Solaris warrior. But the human did not flinch. His eyes met the champion steadily, calm and unshaken, as if he were ready for everything the trial could throw at him. Lysera's heart pounded. She had watched this trial countless times, seen warriors much stronger than ordinary soldiers defeated in moments. And now here was a human, small by Solaris standards, facing the most skilled fighter of her empire. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down, heavier than any crown she had ever worn. The duel began. The champion lunged, fast and precise, his spear slicing through the air with deadly intent. The human moved with a skill that surprised everyone. He dodged, ducked, and sidestepped, anticipating each strike not with strength, but with sharp focus and instinct. Every move was calculated, every step deliberate. He used the champion's speed against him, turning attacks into openings. The crowd gasped as the human countered. Not with sheer power, but with cleverness. He disarmed the champion, using his momentum and a quick twist of his body. The spear flew harmlessly aside, landing on the ground with a sharp clatter. The champion's eyes widened in disbelief. No human had ever done this. Lysera felt something stir deep within her, a mixture of shock, admiration, and something unfamiliar, respect. She had been taught that her crown symbolized ultimate power, that her empire's warriors were unmatched. Yet here, standing before her, a human had shown courage, intelligence, and skill that rivaled her finest champions. The duel continued. The human did not attack recklessly, nor did he hesitate. He moved with balance, awareness, and a calm determination that seemed almost impossible. The champion lunged again, faster this time, but the human sidestepped, grabbed the spear mid-strike, and held it steady without harm. The courtyard erupted in whispers and gasps. Even the palace guards lowered their weapons slightly, unable to hide their astonishment. Finally, the duel ended. The champion, uninjured but humbled, nodded in respect to the human. The human straightened, chest rising and falling steadily, eyes calm, but burning with quiet strength. He had passed the final trial. He had proven that courage, intelligence, and heart could match, even surpass power and experience. Lysera stepped closer to the balcony railing, her hands tightening around the gold edges. Her crown, heavy with expectation, suddenly felt light. For the first time, she understood something she had never before considered. True strength was not measured by birth, by title, or by the symbols one wore. It was measured by courage, resilience, and the willingness to face challenges, no matter how impossible they seemed. The human looked up at her, sweat on his brow but dignity in his stance. "I have done what I could, princess," he said quietly. "I do not ask for praise, only that you see my effort." Lysera's chest tightened. She felt pride, not in herself, not in her crown, but in him. "You have done the impossible," she admitted softly. "I underestimated you, human. Your courage, your heart, your mind. They are stronger than many I have known." For a long moment, the palace held its breath. The crowd, the guards, even the champion, they all felt it. Something had shifted. A human, a creature thought weak and insignificant, had stood in the heart of the Solaris Empire and proven that strength was not only physical. Lysera lowered her crown slightly, as if seeing it for the first time. She understood now that it was not power that made someone great. It was what they did with the abilities they had. How they faced fear, and how they carried themselves in the face of impossible odds. The human nodded, a faint smile on his lips. "Whatever comes next, princess, I am ready." Lysera smiled back, a mixture of respect and awe shining in her eyes. "And so am I," she said quietly, her heart changed forever. The courtyard had fallen silent after the final trial. The suns above shimmered, casting long shadows across the marble floor, but all eyes were on the human who had just completed what no one had ever believed possible. Princess Lysera stood on her balcony, her golden crown heavy on her head, yet somehow lighter in meaning. She had watched him through every trial, and now, after the final duel, a strange feeling had taken root inside her, a mixture of awe, pride, and something new, respect. For years, she had been taught that her crown, her title, and her heritage were the ultimate measure of power. To rule the Solaris Empire, to command warriors, to be feared and admired, these were the marks of greatness. Yet here stood a human, small by Solaris standards, lacking armor and born into no kingdom, who had survived every challenge, every illusion, every blade, and even her greatest warrior. And he had done it with heart, intelligence, and courage that surpassed many she had known in her own court. Lysera's chest tightened. She felt a swirl of emotions, pride that someone could be so brave, doubt that her empire had underestimated humans for so long, and humility in realizing that a crown alone did not make one great. She had always believed that strength came from titles, from bloodlines, from tradition. But watching this human, she understood that true power was something deeper. It was courage when fear tried to hold you down. It was intelligence when chaos threatened to consume you. It was the strength to stand tall when everyone else expected you to fall. The human lowered his gaze respectfully, waiting for her judgment. "Princess Lysera," he said, voice steady and calm, "I have done what I could. I ask not for reward, only that you see what I have given through my actions." Lysera felt her heart tighten further. There was no arrogance in him, no boast. He had not demanded recognition. He had Sim. Ply faced every challenge with determination, and he had emerged stronger, unbroken, and dignified. She realized that she had been wrong to judge humans as weak, as insignificant. This one human had shown her that courage and heart could surpass any crown, any weapon, and any tradition. She stepped closer to the balcony railing, her eyes locked on him. I see you," she admitted, her voice soft, almost a whisper. "I see your courage, your heart, your mind. You have done what no one could. You have shown me that strength is not measured by birth or title, but by what you do when faced with the impossible." The courtiers whispered among themselves. Some were shocked, some inspired, but all watched as the princess, heir to one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy, acknowledged the human's worth. It was a moment none would forget. The human looked up at her, and for the first time, he allowed a faint, humble smile. "Thank you, princess. Your acknowledgement is more than I could have hoped for." Lysera's fingers touched the edge of her crown, and she realized that it had never been the crown itself that mattered. It was the responsibility it symbolized, the choice to lead with wisdom and courage. And in that moment, she made a decision. She would lead differently from before. She would no longer measure greatness by tradition or fear. She would see potential, courage, and heart wherever they appeared, even in someone as unexpected as a human. Slowly she nodded. "You have earned more than respect, human. You have earned my trust, and perhaps my friendship." A murmur ran through the crowd. The princess's words carried weight, signaling a change that went far beyond a single trial. The human had not only proven himself, he had begun to change the way an entire empire might see humanity. For the first time, Lysera felt something that her crown had never given her, humility and hope. And she knew that from this moment forward, the galaxy would see humans not as weak outsiders, but as beings capable of courage, wisdom, and greatness. The human bowed slightly once more. "I am ready to follow your lead, princess, wherever that path may go." Lysera's lips curved into a small smile. "Then let us walk it together," she said, her voice firm yet gentle. "There is much to learn and much to face, but we will face it as equals." The sun shone brighter in the sky, and for a moment, the courtyard seemed to glow with possibility. A human had stood before the princess, and in doing so, had shown the meaning of true strength. Days passed after the final trial, and the courtyard slowly returned to its usual rhythm. But Princess Lysera could not forget the human who had defied every expectation. She found herself thinking of him constantly, his calm courage, his sharp mind, and the quiet strength that had left even her proudest warriors humbled. Something inside her had shifted. Her crown, once a symbol of unquestioned power, now felt heavier, not in weight, but in responsibility. She summoned him to the balcony one morning. The twin suns shone bright, glinting on her golden crown, but she felt no desire to shine above anyone. She wanted to see him, to understand him, to learn what had made him stand so tall against impossible odds. The human arrived promptly, as always calm, as always steady. "Princess Lysera," he said, bowing respectfully. His eyes, however, were not filled with fear or hesitation. They were filled with curiosity, as if he too wanted to understand the princess behind the crown. "Come closer," she said softly, her voice carrying warmth she had never shown before. "I want to speak with you. Not as a princess to a visitor, but as one being to another." He stepped forward, and for a moment, the palace felt quiet, as if the world itself had paused. Lysera's gaze lingered on him. "You have done more than survive," she began. "You have changed the way I see everything. Your courage, your heart. It has opened my eyes to something I never understood before. Strength is not in a crown, or in a throne, or in power alone. It is in action and choice, in the courage to face what seems impossible." The human listened silently, nodding slightly. "And you, princess, have shown that even those who rule can learn. Even those who are taught to see the world one way can choose to see it differently. That too is strength." Lysera's lips curved into a small smile. She had never felt this way before, so equal, so understood, so challenged in the right way. "You have earned not just my respect," she said, "but my trust, and my guidance. If we are to face the future together, I need someone who sees the world clearly, someone who can remind me what courage truly is." The human bowed slightly again. "Then I will stand by your side, princess. Not because of your crown, not because of your title, but because we can achieve more together than we ever could apart." For the first time, Lysera felt a connection that went beyond duty or protocol. She felt something stronger, a bond formed from shared respect and understanding. Her people watched from the palace halls, whispering among themselves, seeing the princess not just as a ruler, but as someone capable of recognizing greatness in unexpected places. They spoke for hours that day, sharing ideas, visions, and hopes for the empire. Lysera realized that she had underestimated humans, not just for their physical abilities, but for their minds, their hearts, and their courage. And the human realized that a leader's strength could come not only from authority, but from humility, from openness, and from the willingness to learn. By the end of the day, the bond between them had deepened. Lysera's crown no longer felt like a barrier between her and her people. It was a symbol of the responsibility she now carried with care. Guided by wisdom, courage, and the human who had shown her the meaning of true strength. That evening, as the sun set and the skies painted themselves in gold and crimson, Lysera stood quietly on the balcony, the human at her side. She realized that greatness was not measured by the power one wielded, but by the choices one made and the courage one showed when it mattered most. And in that realization, she felt hope, not just for herself, but for her empire, and for the humans she had once underestimated. The human glanced at her, his calm presence a steadying force. "Princess," he said softly, "together we can do what neither of us could do alone." Lysera looked at him, the winds of the palace brushing her hair, and nodded. "Yes," she said, voice firm, filled with both pride and humility. "Together we will show the galaxy what courage and heart truly mean." And in that moment, the bond was sealed not by crowns, not by titles, but by respect, understanding, and the unshakable spirit that defined both human and Solaris alike. The suns hung low in the sky, casting long golden shadows across the palace courtyard. Princess Lysera stood at the balcony, the wind gently lifting her hair, and the crown on her head catching the last light of the day. Yet for the first time, the crown did not feel like the ultimate symbol of power. It felt like a promise, a responsibility to do what was right, to recognize courage wherever it appeared, and to lead with heart. Beside her the human stood calmly, a presence that had already changed her world. Together, they had faced trials that tested body, mind, and spirit. Together, they had learned that strength was not defined by birth, by title, or by wealth. True strength, they had discovered, came from courage, intelligence, and the unwavering choice to do what was right even when everything seemed against you. Lysera looked out over the courtyard. Her people, the Solaris warriors, and the courtiers had all witnessed the impossible. A human had survived every trial and stood proudly among them. Whispers of awe and admiration had spread across the empire, but Lysera knew that the story would grow beyond walls and suns. It would travel across galaxies, carrying a lesson they had all learned. Never underestimate courage, heart, and intelligence, no matter the form it took. She turned to the human, who met her gaze without hesitation. "Princess Lysera," he said softly, "I have learned much from your people and from you. But I have also learned that courage and heart are the same everywhere, in every world. It is not something born of a crown, it is something you carry inside." Lysera nodded, feeling the weight of his words settle in her chest. "And I have learned that leadership is not about fear or authority," she replied. "It is about seeing greatness in others, even when the world expects you to look down upon them. You have shown me that, human, and for that, I am grateful." The human smiled faintly, humble but strong. "Then let us build a future together, princess. A future where strength is measured not by bloodlines or titles, but by courage, heart, and action." Lysera felt a warmth in her chest, a hope she had never known before. She knew that the empire would watch, and that many would resist change. But she also knew that they could no longer ignore what they had seen. A human small, underestimated, and once thought weak had stood before the greatest warriors of Solaris and proven that true strength could not be contained by appearances, titles, or expectations. That evening, the princess walked through the halls of the palace, side by side with the human. Her people bowed in respect, not just for her, but for him. And in that moment, a new legacy was born, one of courage, respect, and equality. The lessons of the trials, the battles of heart and mind, and the quiet strength of a human would be remembered for generations. Lysera paused at the balcony again, looking out at the horizon. The suns were setting, painting the sky with streaks of gold, crimson, and violet. She felt a sense of peace, knowing that her empire, her people, and even she herself would never forget what it'd be.